presenters. Thank you, everyone. We'll just wait another minute for everyone else to join us. All right, let's get started. So I am the architect and owner of this house, Cascade House. This is what you see from the street front. The house was built in 1942, so in the middle of the Second World War. And you can imagine a time of material shortage, so not as much effort was sort of put into the exterior as houses of a previous generation, but that's a different story inside. Because this has always been a semi-detached house, there's a house that shares a boundary on that end. The entrance has always been on the side. So the concept was always to highlight that side entry because it was almost unnoticed from the street. This arbor was created, it's got star jasmine climbing up on it, and the timber slats were designed with an arrow sort of hinting that way. This is where you enter. We've got grapevine over here and a pathway. This is quite compressed, almost intentionally. What you're seeing here hides the bins and the garden store and others. So it serves a purpose. It does storage, but also provides a sort of nice entry walkway into the house. And then as you turn the corner, there's a bit of a reveal, and the extension to the old house reveals itself. It's much more vertical than the original house, but it's actually not much taller at all from the original house because of the big hipped roof. Because brick was such a, if I could please ask everyone to mute their mics, because brick was such a big part of the original dwelling's character, and also of our experiences growing up around a lot of brick architecture, it almost went without question that the addition would also be in brick, and of course to not just apply brick for the sake of it, but also to kind of celebrate it. One of the ways to do that was through that detailing which you're seeing over there. I'll just give you a bit of a close-up of it. So that is called a Flemish Bond, where every couple of bricks that's turned around. And then of course, those are half bricks, but then in other instances, they're full bricks and then they project out from the wall. It's a bit shadowy today, but you know, when the sun falls out in the afternoon, you get these lovely shadows that are quite dramatic. And as the sun sets, that faces west, the shadows get shorter and shorter. And so it almost becomes like a moving artwork in the late afternoon that is looking up through the brick, and that there is actually a gutter for the second roof that projects out, and that is a rain chain. So when it rains, it actually comes to life, and you've got almost like a water feature coming down from there. It was quite intentional to keep the house off the western boundary, because a big part of what we wanted from the house was to feel surrounded by garden on all sides. So we consciously avoided the building boundary to boundary, which is quite common. So we moved the original entrance, which was actually halfway along this pathway, to where the new and the old portions of the house connect. That is the entrance. And so the idea being that where you enter, if you were to turn right, it's the older part of the house with a lot of the bedrooms. So one doesn't have to walk through all that private zone in order to arrive at the house. And then of course, to the left is the newer living areas, the living, kitchen, dining zone. Shut that door now. There's an entrance seat there to sit down, take your shoes off, and sort of park your stuff and dump your stuff. I will commence actually with the older part of the house. There's a slight step down from the older part of the newer part of the house. This is so that once we get to the backyard and the garden, we actually flow up to the garden much better and don't get separated from it. So going through the walkway of the old house here. The old house ended right there. So it was essentially just 4 rooms, 1, 2, 3, 4, with a bathroom at the end of the corridor. And that was considered sufficient for a family of 4. But as I mentioned before, just because the outsides are not that dramatic doesn't mean the inside isn't. The old part of the house is full of these beautiful art deco ceilings, put in with great care. And in fact, the brickwork that you see on the outside is actually a super scaled slice of that design. Similarly, in the other bedroom here. And then the older part of the house is full of beautiful textures. These are original to the house, and these were all kept. So as you can see, you know, quite simple from the outside, but quite exuberant on the inside. And that's kind of what we wanted to take outside. These are two wet areas closer to the private zones. There's a family bathroom here and a powder room. And there are 1, 2, 3 bedrooms in this section. And the old entrance was converted into quite an efficient and compact laundry. So going to the new portion of the house, you can see we've streamlined sort of the circulation of the house sort of in one simple line, trying to be very efficient with space, but also use that space very effectively. All along the sides of that circulation is storage in every form. These cupboards don't really draw a lot of attention to them, but they've got heaps of storage. Similarly here, even under the staircase, and of course bookshelves that wrap around to the living room. So we're now entering the living zone of the new extension. With the dramatic ceilings in the old house, there was no way we could be true to that by having a flat plasterboard ceiling in this section of the house. So as you can see, a lot of effort has gone into sort of having texture and detail in that ceiling. Just looking back towards the old house with the bookshelf wrapping around. Now, one of the things that often surprises people when they enter this part of the house is that or when they look at a plan of the house, is that the footprint of the extension is actually not much larger than the older house. And that is so that we can step off the boundary and get aspects of green in all directions from every part of this room. So of course now it's winter, so it's not as lush and green, but obviously in summer and spring and autumn, there's a lovely outlook in multiple directions. And of course, efficiency of space was really important. That circulation also becomes the circulation between the living and the kitchen. The kitchen is sort of semi-separate by having that element in the middle over there. And you've got a lot of the kitchen service stuff hidden over here, which is your fridge and your pantry over there, which opens up. And of course, those windows giving you an outlook to who's coming into the house, who's at the door, etc. One of the things with small footprint living is that you've got to be very, very efficient with storage. So we've got a lot of built-in storage around the edges of the room. So sort of over there. And then there's a reading nook in the corner over there next to the bookshelf, which is one of the most popular parts of the house. And that reading nook looks out onto that courtyard, which is between the older house and the new extension, and brings light into that 4th bedroom on the ground floor. So this is looking the other way at the living room and the outlook. So bit of theatrics here in the kitchen, but a lot of the service areas like the sink, etc., are hidden away. The dining table gets pulled right to the edge, so you almost, in summer, there are fly screens that pull across these doors, and these doors actually fully recess into that wall. That's why there's a bit of a solid cavity there. They open all the way through. With no panel remaining fixed, and then you almost feel, the house almost feels like you are eating in the garden and you are outside. And that was part of the idea, that the living room feel like a pavilion. This is one of the main west-facing windows. Obviously, brick is unique in its ability to have that beautiful ability to be a wall, a screen, multiple things. So we had that in the dining area, and it's actually beautiful because in the late afternoon with the shadow that falls on the table, it's not a sunny day today, unfortunately, to prove that, but with the late afternoon, the patterns move from the table to the floor, and you can almost tell the time by how that shadow moves across the house. So as I said, the indoor and the outdoors, there's a very little level difference. You can almost step straight out. And now everybody might be wondering what's happening upstairs, because this is a two-story extension. So this, as you enter, this is the staircase taking you up to the main bedroom suite. That over there is polycarbonate damp-lawn, so that you get a bit of soft light all throughout the day in this central space. And the balustrade is just actually a commercial product that's been painted to let as much light through. So going up. Going up, we've got a little study nook over here. That was sort of one of the things we needed, a little bit of a separate zone for the grown-ups to hide away and do their work. Very handy now in work from home times. And we've got an outlook there to the rooftops. And this is the main bedroom. One of the distinguishing things about this bedroom is that it's actually quite modest. It's only about 3.4 by 3.2 meters, but by creating this sort of vertical element and bringing so much of that sky in, it's actually changes the quality of the room all throughout the day. And then of course we've got this detailing to the ceiling happening, and that draws our eye up all the time. So again, just efficient use of space where possible. And this is the main bathroom. Those windows look north and they give us a lot of bright light. These, on the other hand, in the bathroom, give us a lot more soft southern light, and it sort of bathes that whole area in a really soft glow. The bathrooms are quite simple, just mostly, you know, a play of texture on terrazzo, and very simple color palette and almost floor to ceiling. And then we go back down. We'll just do a quick step out into the garden now. The brick from the outside is also brought into the dining area, so you get that reminder from these blade walls that you are cloaked in a house that is made of brick. And stepping out, that big sky that we're so lucky to enjoy. And then this is the elevation from the back. We call it Cascade House because it felt like a series of waterfalls stepping down towards the backyard. And of course, also that brick pattern feeling like droplets of water coming down the side of the building. There's that hit and miss brick screen, those projecting bricks. And we're back at the old house. And that is our walk around tour of Cascade House. Please stick around if you've got any questions. I would absolutely love to answer them, and feel free to unmute your mics. If you're feeling shy, I'm happy to take questions on chat too. Hello? Did I hear a question from someone? Or if there's any part of the house that people would like me to sort of walk through and show them again, please don't hesitate to ask.
Which suburb is the house in?
Oh, that's an easy one. It's in Northcote. We're about 100 meters at most away from the Merry Creek. So you kind of get which end of Northcote we're in.
What are the other houses in the street like?
Oh, okay, that's a great question. Most of the other houses actually were all built around within 5 years of each other. Interestingly, my neighbor Bert, who's 94, has told us that these were all what would be called builder spec houses. So all of these were semi-detached, and they were all almost built by the same builder in this cul-de-sac. And most of them are similar in the sense that they're brick, they're single story, and a few have sort of weatherboard features, but primarily brick. I've got a few questions coming up here saying thanks for sharing. Oh, how the living room TV screen works. All right, that's an easy one. So with anyone who's got children, you would know that sometimes it can be a battle to limit screen time. And that is partly why you see this huge panel. It's just got a simple barn door mechanism. And the idea being that the TV is hidden behind it. Now, of course, you can't fool everyone all of the time, but it's amazing how just simply hiding it away and creating that composition has managed to decrease the screen time for our kids so much. So it's just a simple barn door mechanism, really. I think I've got some other questions. Just going to view the chat. Can you discuss the choice of painting all the brickwork white for the extension? That's a good point. What happened there was, I mean, what we wanted to reuse was actually almost the, how to put it? Let me see if I can find you an example. All right. That is the kind of grade of brick we're dealing with. It's, you know, it was all really poor condition. It's probably the seconds of the seconds of the seconds, the brick that probably gets used for pathways. And, you know, we often find that, you know, this would be, the last grade of bricks would be broken up and just used for aggregate.
Just like the tour through the Davison Collaborative and someone.
Sorry, is that, okay. So the idea being, because we were using the worst category of bricks and trying to rescue them, they're very uneven in color when they're unpainted, and you know, they're all from different batches. So it would be an absolute jumble if we had left it unpainted. So hence the idea was, because we're using
the first one, the Cascade
so much,
House,
you know.
I think it's about to finish, so that's why they're talking. You can't make it
yes.
bigger either.
So that's why we decided to paint the brick for the extension. What is my favorite feature space? I suppose, well, my favorite is actually that dining zone and the brick screen, partly because of that play of light. As I said, because today's not a sunny day, but I love, we all love sitting down to a meal and just having, you know, not a very strong light, but having that light filter through, and as it moves throughout the day, it goes from the table to the floor to the wall. And so that idea of a space changing with time is something that we love. What was the condition? So the condition of the original bricks in the front of the house, not too bad actually. And I do know for a fact that we didn't waste a single brick. That was for the few opening all of those have been used. The extension addition into, so I'll just show you what that looks like. So, you know, it's pretty good nick given this was 1942. And I think there was one more question in the chat. I've answered all of them. Does anybody have any verbal questions that they'd love me to answer? I think I've answered all the ones in the chat. Please feel free to unmute your mic to ask a question. For those of you who may have been late to this tour, I would urge you not to worry. I think this is being recorded, and this will be put up on the open house page at a later date. So if you've missed a bit, you'll get to view it at your own leisure. I'll just quickly check the chat to see if there's any more questions. Okay, a few comments, very kind words in the chat. Thank you so much. Very glad to show you around. I will leave you here then. Thank you for coming to Cascade House.